Welcome back to the Smite Challenger Circuit. Finch here, joined by Mifflin, and we're in North America today. Just saw a pretty good set earlier on in the day, and now we're going to be watching Bloogy and the Woogys up against Mexiety Onset. And Weekend, I can't believe I called you Weekend there. Mifflin instead. See, that's how high caliber for tournament I think Yarman should be in the SPL. But
yeah, that's good. That's good.
And Mexiety Onset should be a pretty evenly matched matchup, I would say here, Mifflin. I mean, these are all players that have played in and around this level for a long time, like Cope and Sops and Diesel and MandoWarrior from Mexiety. I mean, these guys have been here for a long time. They're always really competitive. And then for Bloogy and the Woogys, guys like Mollusk, who's been up at the SPL before, has played in the SML before too, Gamma, Crimson, those guys all come to mind when we think about how strong this roster can be.
Yeah, I would give the slight edge to Bloogy and the Woogys just because they have that experience playing at the higher level. They should be able to maybe play from behind a little bit better, understand team compositions a little bit more. However, as you said, we can't take away from Mexiety Onset having played around the level that they're currently playing at for so long. 5 years, Mexiety Onset has been a team, at least by name. Not exactly this roster, but this team has been around a long time.
Yeah, they have. All these players have, man. So they're very unlikely, right? The Bloogy and the Woogys are going to bring something out that's going to surprise them or catch them off guard, or they'll be in like some 28-minute team fight, not sure what to do or something like that. This squad's going to come in pretty confident, having been in most of these scenarios before. So let's hop into those picks and bans. The Unbots banned right away. That makes a ton of sense to me. I think Unbots is really strong right now, and if you're in the first pick, that's kind of the tier you want to ban. You're hoping some of the really good stuff gets left for you, and you can have your pick of that. So I think that Unbots and Terra, those are perfectly fine first pick bans.
Yeah, on the side of first pick, as you said, you do want to leave something up on the table. However, banning away 3 of these lower upper tier gods is going to allow for Mexiety Onset to maybe get away with 2 very high tier picks, as they didn't elect to ban out really anything overly powerful on the side of Bloogy and the Woogys. Mexiety Onset, on the other hand, does ban out the 3 most potent gods in the game for my money, Camazotz especially being one of the best. Bloogy and the Woogys electing to pick up that Thor. It's a similar pick in Hunbots insofar as it's incredibly safe. You're not going to be able to really get forced out on Thor. It's not really easy to counter pick. But giving up that Merlin is going to be a pretty big deal, especially since he's one of the most dominant mid laners this season. The objective burn, I can't stop bringing it up because he's just got so much of it. He's going to be able to really look towards those early Gold Furies.
But not in win percent, which you saw the other day, right? So I don't know how much I buy into that, right? Merlin is obviously really good right now, so I think this is certainly a perfectly fine pick. Bloogy and the Woogys select Thor overall. I thought maybe they would give up the Kukulkan with that play, but because Mexiety Onset elect for the Merlin, they can still grab that Kukulkan later on, and they get Kumbhakarna to go along with it, which gives them a ton of setup, right? It gives them a ton of control in these team fights. And Kuku is exactly the kind of mid laner I want when my support's bringing this much CC to the table.
Not just the support, Thor as well, when he lands with that Anvil of Dawn, is a perfect setup for Kukulkan as well. It's going to be able to deal so much damage off Spirit of the Nine Winds. If Merlin ever has his beads down with Kumbhakarna and Thor in the wings, Kukulkan should be able to pick up those kills back-to-back very easily.
Should be racking it up in the middle lane. Amaterasu rounds out the first 3 picks for Mexiety Onset alongside that Geb. So that tells me that with a Geb and an Ama picked up, that maybe there's a bit of an eye towards that kind of team fighting stage. Neither one of these gods are particularly great through those first 10 levels or so. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mexiety Onset are trying to take a bit of a back foot. The Ho Yi, who can box in lane, does say some similar things to me. He's got plenty of potential in lane early, but he feels a bit more skewing towards late. And what's all this? A Cupid being hovered for Bloogy and the Woogys. But I mean, I doubt that gets locked in. Cupid's not that highly valued right now. Instead, it will be the Chernobog who can rotate around the map quite well and can box at multiple stages.
Yeah, taking a peek at this comp, Mexiety Onset's really all in on the fact that they've got a couple hyper carries on their team. The Mercury's going to pop off in the late game, as is the Merlin, and they've got very good backline peel out of this Geb and Amaterasu. It's just, when you draft for the late game as they don't really have any bridge early game characters. It's going to be hard to get to that point in the game. Whereas Bloogy and the Woogys, they've got some decent late game and a standard hunter out of Chernobog, as well as Kukulkan's going to just pop off for the majority of the mid to late game. And they've got these bridge characters in Thor and the Kumbhakarna to make sure that they can get there. I have to give the edge to Bloogy's comp.
Let's take a look at the Bloogy and the Woogys roster here. It's Aqua and andinster, and this is something I was looking at earlier on. You know, I heard that this roster was considering making a few changes, and looks like that is what happened here for them. They're still going to keep Crimson, who played for a while at the console level here, Gamma, and then Blugin, I assume of whom the name is chosen. But instead of Gamma, and I believe it was Half Ghost that was here with them before, it's Aqua and Andy. And hey, man, when you can add SPL caliber talent to your team, I don't think you're ever going to complain, man. I mean, Aqua, I think, despite some of Space Station struggles last year, was one of their best players. He rarely loses you lane. And then Andy back in his signature role here in jungle. I think this can work well for this team.
Yeah, this is a lot better. I expect we're going to see a lot more impact from andinster. Originally, if you guys weren't watching the first couple of weeks, andinster was playing in that support role. He was generally looking towards those assassin supports as well, so he might not be as out of practice as we think on the jungle role as well. Thor is pretty standard as a pick, so he's not going to be struggling too much there. 7 years he's been playing this guy, so I imagine he's going to be quite decent at him.
Yeah, he's andinster, one of those guys maybe with double-digit account numbers, right? He's been playing Smite for a long time, so certainly would expect him to be comfortable with it. So far, though, this early game been relatively low pressure. We didn't really see much invades. That's not too surprising. We didn't see any aggressive supports get locked in or anything like that, and that's a pace that I think Mexiety Onset's draft are happy to take. But here's andinster getting aggressive into the jungle. Was caught out a little bit, but is now retreating. Takes a good deal of damage. Some extra Merlin damage coming in to force the beads to get away from the slow, but has that hammer, repositions back towards the tier 1 and does make it out. But maybe there's a loop from Gamma. It's low HP, but they might be able to make a play here.
JinguBang should have the dash available. He's going to go ahead and, you know, just get out of there, back into the tower. Sop's not really aggressed on, but he is at this point. Merlin, very low on mana. He's got no potions available to him anymore. I imagine we'll have to see an early back, or it leaves the red buff open to invade if he decides to stick around a little bit longer. Bloogy and the Woogys as well having the stronger early game. It makes sense that andinster was positioning aggressively. Unfortunately, it just didn't pan out for him. They should keep up that pace, though. Bloogy and the Woogys definitely have complete control of the pre-15-minute mark of this game.
Gamma has this Hand of the Gods selected, and I would have thought this might have gotten used up a little bit bigger, a little bit sooner. But to be honest, when supports are picking up this relic, that is one, or this consumable rather is better to say. I'm not quite sure where exactly it is they're looking to try and drop this down. Is it if they're like alone on maybe like a back harpy or something and want to clear this out? Why are supports normally picking this up?
Usually you do pick it up only for the counter invade if you're worried that they're going to move into your buffs. I don't imagine that Gamma's particularly worried about that, so maybe he's going to use it towards those neutral objectives in the mid camps or maybe the oracles. But right now he still has it in his inventory. It's not really seen any use yet. He could be worried about the second rotation of the purple buff once that spawns, as Chernobog should have the pressure, but Huyi and Geb have a lot of fight potential at this point in the lane. So maybe he's worried that they're going to get poked out and he might be able to steal it away. But for now, it's really just a defensive pickup, as Hog always is. I've said it since it's come out. If you are forced into picking up Hand of the Gods, it's kind of a concession that you're making, in that you're not going to have that potion slot available, which is going to give you less sustain in the lane, and less sustain means less fight potential, as you don't want to trade your health anymore. So picking up Hog, although it does mitigate losses, it never really puts you in the lead.
And he ends up, I think, just selling it when he backed instead to put wards in that slot. So really, it doesn't end up getting him much value at all. Perhaps, just as you said, it's a defensive measure to maybe prevent Mexiety Onset from getting aggressive. But that's the thing. I don't really know if I would have been all that worried about aggression from Mexiety Onset in the early game here with this draft. Either way, it doesn't end up happening. Gamma makes out of their A-OK, and now andinster looping around to lock off JinguBang and maybe see if they can catch this Mercury. Special delivery does throw Crimson back to the wolves. The ultimate doesn't really catch anything, and JinguBang's out of the way, but up to the sky goes andinster. The dunk doesn't find anything. The hammer finds 2 hits. He teleports in, immunes the knockup as well, but JinguBang still clings to life, does get rooted, dashes, though, to get out of range of any follow-up. How has JinguBang lived through all of this, and now Gamma's the one who's perhaps overcommitted. Diesel gets a couple shots. Mortbklyn right there as well. The knockup keeps him in range, and Diesel can't keep up the chase. So somehow, through all of that, Mifflin, no one dies.
Unfortunately, andinster doesn't find the Anvil of Dawn onto Mercury, but it did force out the pre-beads anyway. So those beads are down now. JinguBang also a level down as well, as andinster's moving through his jungle aggressively. Sop doesn't really have any mana, so I'd imagine he's out safely. Actually, no hammer available, no ultimate available either. MandoWarrior might be able to find the aggression, but his ult is down as well. andinster gets to walk out. 1 back camp to his name, continue to farm. So now that beads are down on Mercury, we need to see some aggression towards him. I would prefer it if the aggression were more focused towards Sops, as he has a lesser escape and Flicker being so short distance. But slowing down either hyper carry on the side of Mexiety Onset is a win for Blugin the Woogys. Whether or not they can really make use of the fact that JinguBang's beads are down is going to be the determining factor on this first blood. But I imagine JinguBang is going to play completely passive going forward until those are back up.
He's going to want those extra options, man. It must be good to be Mercury and the Talaria boots being a viable pickup for you. I got to imagine that extra, 7% movement speed or so didn't hurt on that wild escape that he made moving around the map there either. So nicely done by JinguBang. Mercury can obviously use that movement speed for a little bit of extra power there too with the passive. So still a relatively slow pace. You've seen a couple of aggressive plays from Bloogie and the Woogies. andinster with the loop around in mid. Gamma had a small play where he looked to try and start something off in mid too, but didn't find much. Might look for a gank on Diesel here in left as well. Diesel still has the dive bomb, so he can reposition to avoid the root. Gamma gets in range for the ultimate, makes the Mez a little bit less valuable in the back end since the damage comes right away, but they do lock him down. Diesel has the sun to keep himself safe and able to make it out, even gets Blugin's beats.
Diesel played that about as well as he possibly could have. The second that Kumbhakarna showed himself in that lane, Diesel put all the pressure he possibly could onto Blugin, making it a little bit harder for him to move up off the CC from Kumbhakarna, and then immediately escapes out of there safely. Unfortunately, he doesn't get a kill off of it. No one really does, but he does burn out the beads, as you said, onto Diesel. So that's a very decent gank opportunity for JinguBang. Moving down the duo lane through the tower using the global ultimate is one of the best ways that Mercury can get involved in the early game, even though he is more late game focused. So I imagine JinguBang might look towards that lane a little bit more going forward, knowing that those beads are down. It's really the only active down on the side of Bloogie and the Woogys, so it's this real exclusive gank opportunity.
andinster was considering coming up to try and strip away some of this farm, and looks like he won't be able to. JinguBang defend it all. They forced andinster to use the ultimate defensively to get out too. That's a nice win for Mexiety Onset. A little bit of time, they don't have to worry about it, but maybe it's not such a win if they're going to get aggressive off the back of it. Mortbklyn is in some trouble, and in comes Crimson with a well-placed ultimate to set up Aqua for the first blood. Mando does get a nice stun, but perhaps more for the disengage than anything, but there is some cavalry coming. Sops, as well as JinguBang, are on their way, and Gamma still in no man's land. A two-man Mez allows for the reposition, trying to find some slows. There's the special delivery. They send the Kumbhakarna back. They can proc this passive and complete the kill to at least make it 1-for-1, but the first blood did go the way of Bloogie and the Woogies.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that Crimson was out of mana there. After he dropped his ultimate, he completely disengaged, and that's when Sop rotates in, making a disparity in team members for the side of Mexiety Onset. Unfortunately, Gamma stuck around just a little bit too long. But overall, that is a win for Bloogie and the Woogys. They find the first blood. However, taking a peek at that gold deficit, Mexiety Onset is up about 200-ish gold, so it's not that bad. It's pretty impressive, rather, that they are playing up with first blood on the side of Bloogie and the Woogys. They're just farming the map a little bit better. It seems like they're playing around their back camps a little bit more, and they're getting those neutral objectives in the mid camps on cooldown, whereas Bloogie and the Woogys are continually looking for these ganks off the back of andinster's continued aggression in this game. So instead of focusing their time farming, they are looking for that early aggression.
And that's how we expected this to go, I think, right, based on the drafts, was that Bloogie and the Woogys had a better claim to this early, but Blugin might be in some trouble. We already know the ultimate's down because he ulted back in from base. JinguBang comes in to clean up his second kill of the game. Already has that rage finished as well, Mifflin, and that could potentially be scary. This could help get this Mercury into that late game form a bit quicker, as he already is working on getting that rage stacked.
Yeah, 9 minutes into the game, already has a stack on Rage, and he's a level up on the enemy Thor. That's scary. MandoWarrior seeing a little bit of aggression under his tower, but he elects to move on out, attack onto andinster. Unfortunately, it looks like he might fall to the Anvil of Dawn. Aquarius couldn't quite find the ultimate. These jukes are nuts.
Yeah, it's MandoWarrior still clean.
Nice kill!
Actually gets a return kill out of it. That's huge from Mando, and that's just straight up misplay from Andy and from Bloogie and the Woogys, right? You got to be able to get that kill before that can happen. So 47% credit to MandoWarrior and 53% that kill should be happening if you're Bloogie and the Woogys, but they end up losing one in that trade. Gamma now getting aggressive and left. Does have some backup coming, but he overstepped, didn't realize Mortbklyn would be coming in to provide some backup, and that ends up being another gifted kill.
Yeah, the Bloogy boys seem like they're maybe a little bit frustrated with how this early game is going, so they're trying to force fights knowing that they do have the early game comp, but they're taking fights that aren't exactly favored towards them, or they don't have the follow-up that they need to actually get these kills, and instead of actually winning the early game, that frustration is leading them to lose it instead, which is terrible, especially when, as we said, Mexiety has the better late game, and now they're just using Blugin the Woogys as a stepping stone to get there even a little bit quicker. JinguBang still maintaining his level lead, everyone else about even except for the supports, where Geb is 2 levels up. That's actually an enormous thing right there. Kumbhakarna needs to be able to get that early defense online so he can continue to play aggressive into these high damage output gods and Merlin, but instead Geb is the one getting that early game lead, so he's going to be able to continue to engage himself if he so chooses, or his disengage is going to be all the more powerful as he's getting those early points into his shield.
How do you like this start, though, to talk about this Mercury build much? I don't know. I don't remember you playing a ton of Mercury, but I'm sure you had plenty of experience on it. I feel like this is the right path that he's moving. He's starting off with the Talaria boots into the Rage, maybe even a stone-cutting sword here next. I know you're a big fan of that one. How do you like this start for him? Maybe
in Season 7, this is nearly ideal. I mean, getting Rage online that quickly on anyone that's going to build it is pretty awesome. I imagine that will be a stone-cutting sword to get the additional movement speed as well as the pen, and 50 power never feels bad, especially on Mercury, who's going to be looking to get the most of his damage off that first punch after his ultimate to make full usage of that passive. But let's hold that thought as andinster goes up in the air.
3 for 3. No, he finds the dunk this time. Sops ends up getting buried, and really there was no way the Merlin was going to make it out of that one. So a nice, easy, clean execution for Blugin the Woogys there in mid. And I don't want to make it seem like it's all doom and gloom for them. They're still relatively even gold-wise in this game, and Aqua has an experience lead over in the solo lane too. That's not too big a surprise. Achilles should be able to bully around this Amaterasu throughout the early game like this. So maybe a little bit that big is a bit of a surprise, but it makes some sense as Blugin gets the bead force down, and apparently Diesel can't miss his shots underneath the tier 1 tower. That shuts Blugin down for a nice solo.
Not only does he shut him down for the solo kill, but he takes away that bead, so it's no longer safe for him to be sitting in that lane. We knew that he was going to go on you when beads were available. JinguBang getting sold out by andinster. Now we're starting to see a little bit of what we expected to see. andinster kind of running the game, just moving throughout the enemy jungle, showing very little respect. The duo lane, on the other hand, is getting a little bit bodied out, so I imagine andinster might want to shift his focus over there and try and gank out this Hu Yi. However, with the deficit being as it is, Blugin no longer having beads available, and Diesel absolutely having his, it might be hard to move in, but someone needs to slow down this Hu Yi.
It's been impressive so far, though, for both of these teams. I think Mexiety has done a bit more in these first 13 minutes than I would have expected from this draft necessarily. It's not as if they cannot fight early, right? It's just that they might be hitting their stride later on in the game, right? But certainly they're not. They don't vanish in that early game, but still impressive work for them. And then Blugin the Woogys, after a couple of execution errors, clearly still mentally in this one and starting to turn things around. They got the Book of Thoth cooldown boots, Polynomicon for Crimson. You want that online for the Cuckoo as soon as possible, as Mortbklyn is in some trouble. Had to use the Cataclysm already, and he ends up falling to Crimson. Andy takes to the sky to try and keep JinguBang on this fight, and maybe they can lock down Sops, but he still has the Flicker, repositions back towards the tier 2, but what about Blugin? He's been left in the thick of it.
Nice old.
Completely Mac trucks one target. That's MandoWarrior that he takes out of the equation. But Blugin does fall in trade, but Aqua gets one more. It's a 3-for-1 in favor of Blugin the Woogys.
Mexiety Onset absolutely knows that this Gold Fury is happening, but Diesel has to return to base. Sops is the only one that can rotate in, and I wouldn't send my Merlin in here. It's an absolute death sentence as andinster already sharking him out. Yeah, I'm just going to peek my head around the corner. No, Sops thinks better of it, knowing for sure that he doesn't have the numbers advantage. His teammates just backed. The ones that didn't back are actually in a body bag in the Shadow Realm, so electing not to move in towards that Gold Fury is the best choice. Getting those mid-camps is the neutral objective, turning what was a complete loss into a still complete loss, but this time with a little bit of gold in your pocket.
I don't know if this is for you. He wants to try and keep this wave, though, so Blugin can come over and grab it. But this is where one of those experience deficits are for Blugin the Woogys, that Blugin is struggling to try and keep up with Diesel, who's had a good game on the Ho Yi here so far. Blugin the Woogys, though, do control the only Fury that's gone down, the one that we just saw. So even with Blugin struggling a bit, they still have the lead for Aqua. It looks as though Andy's been able to find a bit of an experience lead for himself, too, and they're just about even in those other 2 lanes. So they're in a good spot here still, Maybe they would have liked to be a bit further ahead, just the way those drafts ended up going. But Myth, I got to think they're still feeling okay.
Yeah, they're absolutely feeling fine. They know that they have the late game, and that is a bit of a factor that you can go into the morale with. If you know you drafted for the late game, taking a hit in the early game is to be expected. So only 2,000 gold deficit at 15 minutes, that's not a huge deal at all. The XP is a little bit more important. Andinster going up in the air. Eyes on MandoWarrior.
They've shown the ability to blow him up early on. Andinster dunks down, but Mando reads it and has the dash. If you know a Thor ultimate's coming, I don't want to ride Andy too hard. It is fairly jukable in that spot, right? Like if Mando can see it, he's looking up there. I'll just dash once he clicks on.
Yeah, generally you want to use the Thor ult once an engagement has already started, so that your team is creating pressure and kind of controlling the movement of the enemies. Instead, Andinster has been using his to engage every single time. Diesel getting aggressive.
Yeah, Diesel's had a great game so far, and he wants to even keep that going. Beads gets away from the wall stun, and he shuts down Andinster, who doesn't have the ult. Now, JinguBang wants to get active, does find the first big hit, but Gamma can't quite lock him down. That shuts down Blugin as well. Now, Gamma's still stuck, but a big root almost sets up for Crimson. That's a heads-up play over the wall to nearly keep that going, but can't quite find it. That's 2 from Mexiety Onset, when you'd think it was Bloogy and the Woogys, who might have a bit of momentum.
Yeah, I said that Andinster might want to head over there to shut down Diesel, but instead he goes in and throws fuel on the fire that is Diesel's lead. It's a little bit spooky, and I know as a jungler it's so demoralizing walking over and then just getting instantly blown up. There was very little that Andinster could have done there short of just not showing up. He walked in the safe way towards his tower, he was in the tower the majority of the time, and instead Diesel just continues his aggression, finds the kill, forces out Andinster's beads and Aegis. Luckily he trades it out for Hu Yi's beads. So there could be a potential for a kill over there. However, Hu Yi still does have Aegis available. And as we saw, it only takes about 5 auto attacks to kill Thor for him. So maybe Andinster is going to not head back over there, and I wouldn't blame him.
It looks like both of our hunters have stepped away from the crit build. Mortbklyn could be in trouble, though. The wall has locked him down very well. Cataclysm now buys him some time. Now Sops is here to zone Crimson out as well. So Mortbklyn does make it out of there, but it costs him the ultimate in trade. But both of our hunters, as I was trying to hit on, have elected to go with that execution in 3rd slot instead of rage. I think that makes some sense for Blugin. I don't know if you super want to be building crit into Mortbklyn, but still, I think you get plenty of value out of the attack speed pen build too, as Andinster does use the dunk to get in the range.
Nice
the wall
wall.
cuts off Mando's escape with that dazzling offensive, but Mando should be out of there. That ult is too good.
Yeah, to touch on what you said about crit, I know that the majority of pro to semi-pro players, they have a real distaste for crit because it brings a factor of RNG into their game. However, in Season 7, a fully stacked Rage and Deathbringer is around 70% crit, so it's
hardly
essentially, it's essentially guaranteed damage. Every second auto should be critting, and it's going to be dealing way more damage than even 3 auto attacks can with his attack speed and pen build. So it is very strong and potent at this point, but it seems like that just taste of RNG, maybe that 3 in 10 times you don't crit feels so bad that they don't want to elect for it this time. I understand as well why Chernobog Blugin goes not into the crit. As you said, Geb's passive makes it a little bit harder for you to itemize that way. However, itemizing specifically to deal damage towards that Geb might be a misplay in of itself, in that you don't really want to be allocating your hunter's damage into a Geb almost ever.
And I think that for Diesel, the decision-making is like, well, my Mercury's definitely building crit, right? And we don't want to add too much value onto a potential Spectral or Thorns by having it shut us both down effectively. So maybe diversifying the ways that their characters can get to their damage, especially with Diesel so far ahead. He's still going to do plenty of damage with an attack speed pen build. Absolutely, even though the crit build might be a bit more gold efficient and get you there a bit faster. I think that for both these hunters, I can see the argument for the build path they're going this game, even though that rage in that 3rd slot has become all the rage. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that apology is not accepted, but it is noted, as you should have given it. Mexiety Onset going to go ahead and pick up that early Gold Fury, as you will be known to do when you've got a 2-stacked Rage Mercury wailing on it with an SCS. That burned down so quickly, Bloogy the Woogys none the wiser. They had the ward on it, Mexiety Onset did, as well as the Oracle, so they knew they could steal it away. Bloogy the Woogys did know they were around that area, but with the wards they have currently placed, maybe they didn't know what it was pulled, or they definitely couldn't keep track of the health bar. So Mexiety is going to go ahead and pull away with a 2,000 gold lead 20 minutes into the game. That's where you want to be at this point. These late game comps are now starting to move into the late game.
Yeah, this is starting to be a bit scary for Blugin the Woogys. Certainly not out of reach or anything like that, but sort of the way I was trying to say it earlier, the delineation I want to make is that I think that Mexiety Onset just reached their strongest point around now, when you might make the argument that Blugin the Woogys is more mid-gaming, which is now, right? We're not fully to the late game, so I think Blugin the Woogys can certainly still fight in, as MandoWarrior wants to drop the dazzling offensive on the Crimson, knows he doesn't have the purification beads for 30 more seconds. The Suns come out as well to try and keep this Kukulkan tracked, but he managed to live, as does Aqua, and Andy takes to the sky. They're all clumped up, so a good ultimate might be there for him, but still he's patient. He comes over to the left for Sops instead, catches the isolated Merlin, and takes the magic damage out of the equation early on. Andy has put the numbers advantage in favor of Blugin the Woogys, and Mexiety Onset must fall back.
I like the decision andinster made to go on to Sops. Yes, he is detached from the rest of the team, and that makes it a little bit easier for him to find that solo kill, but it's really the positioning that I like from that dunk to get him behind the entirety of Mexiety Onset. He got a nice wall off there. Unfortunately, the rest of Blugin the Woogys couldn't move up past the wall of damage. That is Diesel, the absolute unit.
Poked too.
So that, yeah, they were poked as well. So Mexiety got to back off anyway. But the play there from andinster was pretty pristine, instead finding the one-for-one trade in the entirety of it, with Mexiety Onset picking up the Pyromancer on the back end of it. 1,000, 2,000 gold in favor of Mexiety Onset, 22 minutes into the game. They are looking to continue their aggression. andinster getting his beads forced out a little bit early, finds the less than stellar teleport to the hammer, and Gamma moving in to try and peel him out is going to get picked out as well.
I think he was knocked up and maybe couldn't go to it right when he wanted to. Either way, andinster ends up falling on the back of a good Cataclysm. Gamma gonna drop now too, and Mifflin, this is suddenly a big problem if you're Blugin the Woogys. I know we're on the Gold Fury side, but when you suddenly get a 5 up against 3, I think you start heading towards the Fire Giant. It looks like that is the call for everyone except for JinguBang. Him staying over left makes you think maybe they don't want to start up this Fire Giant. You certainly wouldn't want Mercury DPS for it, but everyone else is heading that way. They should be able to burn it with this Amaterasu aura, with this Merlin here instead, with Diesel here. Plenty fine. JinguBang just going to back instead. But how well can they zone? Aqua is here to try and contest. Crimson still has his ultimate as well to go for a potential steal. In comes Blugin using his ultimate to close the distance. And Mexiety Onset realizing they cannot do this for free. They're going to try and burn Aqua down, lock that fatal strike out, but he can't reposition it time. Diesel catches him out to close out the rampage, but Fire Giant still stands, Myth.
I would have liked to see Blugin the Woogys play even further back there and let them burn it down for Crimson to maybe look for the steal potential. Instead, they move in a little bit early, get poked out, Aquarius losing his life. Crimson gets his ult force out as well, so the steal potential is nearly gone. And it's in the air.
Mexiety Onset do confirm the Fire Giant, but what about the fight on the backside? andinster has already dunked in and already used his hammer, so there is no escape. JinguBang cleans up an easy kill. Gamma drops his ultimate as well, but Mexiety Onset have made this work. It starts with the picks they get onto andinster and Gamma. Mifflin over there on the left. They come right over to the Fire Giant. They have this sort of prolonged fight there, come out on top, and now they got Fire Giant on all 5 members.
Fire Giant on all 5, 40 seconds on andinster's respawn. I imagine we'll see them group up, pick up these last couple tier 2 towers. After the towers, they can move back towards that Primal Fury to get even an additional amount of gold. And with so much time on Fire Giant, as well as the waves are relatively pushed up for all the lanes, they should be able to back after that Gold Fury and then even return towards those Phoenixes, having spent all the gold with even another full minute on Fire Giant. Mexiety Onset can either choose to slow play it, or if Blugin the Woogys decide to defend around these tier 2 towers, they could potentially get a pick, Mexiety Onset that is, and then move in towards these Phoenixes. They've got a lot of options going forward. It's going to be very difficult for Blugin the Woogys to find the defense outside of Crimson. Kukulkan, historically very good at defending around these towers. Tornadoes is going to be able to keep them out. Any form of CC should set up for Spirit of the Nine Winds rather well. On the other hand, Aquarius has proven that he's not quite tanky enough to be the frontliner that we need him to be for Blugin the Woogys, so he can't really move up very well into the backline and create that CC opportunity. andinster, yes, he's got a huge amount of damage, especially if you take a peek at his build, finding that early Crusher as well as the Transcendence is fully stacked, but he hasn't been able to find a confirmed 100-0 on anybody quite yet on Mexiety Onset. It's going to be hard for him to find the defense there. 2 members over in the short lane. They're going to be late getting to this Phoenix.
And Mexiety Onset are already starting to step in, but this is not a full commit. It looks like they just wanted to try and force some backs, but andinster remains patient. So he'll be able to get the tier 1, maybe even trade out a tier 2 for this. That's a tough call to make if you're Andy to choose to stick around, but he ends up being able to cancel the back in time. And JinguBang will see if maybe he can catch Andy out, but now andinster is backing when he recognizes there's no one around. So this is okay from Mexiety Onset, but I don't know, man. I feel like they're in a position up 8,000 gold with Fire Giant to where they could have done a siege or two onto these Fire Giants, at least giving it a try. They're going to head over towards the Primal and pick that up as well. It'll only leave them with a little over a minute to consider any push. It might already be that window's closed.
Man, I love what I perfectly predict what's going to happen. The double tier 2 tower into the Gold Fury. That's just, I got a smile on my face right now. I imagine we'll see the back to spend all that gold up. It was around an 8,000 gold lead, but maybe 2,000 to 3,000 of it was in pocket at the time, so closer to a 5,000 gold lead, which gold in the pocket makes not for a lead. You need to turn that gold into stats through items. However, it looks like they're going to slow down even further and set up for this Pyromancer as well. I'm a huge fan of playing slow. We like to call it discipline on Smite, but this is not discipline. At this point, having just meandered about the map, they're completely split up right now with their Fire Giant, making nearly no use of it, whereas on the other end, Bloogy Woogys grouped up as a death ball. It's going to be hard for them to really group up and stop this from happening to Diesel and Mando.
Yeah, in fact, this play only works if Mexiety Onset are spread out exactly like they are right now. andinster does find the dunk on the Mando on the wall to keep Diesel stunned too. Aegis comes out from trying to keep him alive, but this Hu Yi will meet his end. That's a big shutdown bonus for Blugin as well, who desperately needed the cash injection. The rest of Bloogy Woogys, though, on the retreat. Aqua has just backed. Mexiety Onset have fully grouped up with their 3 members, but over in right, JinguBang was considering threatening the right Phoenix to get the back out there from Aqua to prevent that one from happening. But andinster has decent positioning in the back of this fight. Maybe he can find himself a flank onto sops.
JinguBang finds the 2-man ult.
Yeah, Sonic Boom comes right back through. Gamma is low in the back line. They proc that passive right away. Some Mexiety Onset and the boys. Once they can find a kill, the ultimate's to try and prevent that from happening, but Sops can't get in there in time. JinguBang locks down Aqua, gets pulled back in by Sops' damage. A good wall, though, cuts that off, and Aqua is able to get 1 kill, but Sops has himself a double. JinguBang is still up as well, and andinster ends up falling. What started as a poor fight for Mexiety Onset, rather, has turned back in their favor, and they got 3 members. With JinguBang alive, maybe they can still threaten the Phoenix.
They absolutely can. JinguBang's got so much damage, as well as the mid lane is pushed up already. MandoWarrior doing a fantastic job of zoning out the carries in Blugin and Crimson, so they should have a free path in towards this Phoenix. That is the most fortunate outcome that Mexiety could hope for, having made that misplay of not grouping up. However, this Phoenix might get stopped. The push not able to find it. Mexiety Onset getting forced out. The damage from JinguBang is good towards the Phoenix, but he doesn't have any standard flat pen in his build, so the damage to structures might be a little bit low. However, you would have thought that the attack speed stem from his second ability would have been enough. Instead, they're going to back up, get this Pyromancer, put that Phoenix on its last couple legs, so that should be able to be cleared up relatively easily going forward. I like that Mexiety Onset is backing here. They've got complete ward coverage on the right side of the map, so they know if Bloogy Woogys does elect to move in towards that Fire Giant, knowing that they backed, they would have the vision and it would be easy for them to counter it. Instead, though, now they're going to group up. Bloogy Woogys haven't moved up even a little bit. This should be a free Fire Giant, and I imagine we'll see the siege really come through here for the first time with a contested defense from the side of Bloogy Woogys.
But the relic situation is a bit grim for Mexiety, and maybe that's why Bloogy Woogys is so far forward. No relics for either carry, no supportive relics coming out from the support, no beads for JinguBang. They might be trying to capitalize on that, but they're walking into a trap. Cataclysm hits 2, Gamma and Aqua already low. Andy takes to the sky, sees Diesel and Sops grouped up, but is only able to find Diesel. He gets him all the way down to nothing, finds the kill. But he lost 2 members elsewhere. Aqua and Gamma fell very quickly after the poke they sustained early on. Brooklyn is going to keep andinster zoned out of the fight, so MandoWarrior can just try and sit on top of Crimson. Meanwhile, there's trouble for Blugin as well, as JinguBang coming out favorably in their trade. So even though andinster gets to Diesel, that fight still favors Mexiety Onset.
Yeah, that not only do they get that early pick on the backline, unfortunately for andinster, his team did fall in the front. That was a decent aggression from Mexiety Onset. They realized that, yes, Diesel's dead. We don't really have any utility to get back there to him and help him out, so let's go ahead and try and move forward as quickly as we can. So the second that andinster dunked down, we saw that the entirety of Mexiety Onset as a group of 4 immediately started surging forward into the front line of Bloogy Woogys, finding those 2 picks, as well as forcing out the health from andinster. Makes it very hard for them to contest this Fire Giant, so they pick it up, Only on 4 members, unfortunately. However, most of the time you use Fire Giant for the structured damage as well as the sustain. Diesel's got both in spades already through his lifesteal as well as his build, so it's not the most enormous deal that he is the one lacking the Fire Giant buff.
No, I think it'll be okay. I mean, Diesel might be the most valuable person to have it, in all honesty, but I think that, but as you said, they still can kind of mitigate that loss. JinguBang and Sa, I mean, everyone's going to get plenty of value out of this still, and they're certainly still favored when they come into this next fight. And I think that kind of shows that Mexiety Onset are just far enough ahead. Bloogy Woogys were trying to capitalize on that window when they knew they had the relic advantage, when maybe they could catch Mexiety Onset off guard. But I think Aqua and Gamma at this point can't do quite enough frontlining that they need to, especially Gamma. He's only level 15, Mifflin, still 30 minutes into the game. And a lot of some of that tankiness can just come from naturally leveling up. I know his itemization is still good. He has the Sovereignty and the Only Hunters, the Gauntlet of Thebes. But I think they're still missing some of that frontline help, and they're getting blown up by Sops and Diesel and JinguBang.
Yeah, right now, the only real option for Gamma is to play around his backline and use his abilities to stop maybe a channeled ability or something like that. As you said, he's so squishy being level 15 that he can't really move in towards that backline. Getting touched by Diesel as Gamma is nearly a death sentence as the first siege of the game truly starts to kick off. Looks like Andinster's going to get poked out early, and we're electing for a 4-1 split with JinguBang in the middle.
JinguBang and Aqua should be a pretty good matchup. Aqua should be able to keep him at bay. The left side Phoenix is now under siege. Bloogywoogys is already in and tanking up. Gamma goes right to the back line, does find a decent mez. The wall comes out from Andinster, and some bees were forced out. Sops and Diesel both have those on cooldown. That's why Andy takes to the sky, dunks right down. The Geb shield, though, even better to get him back out of there. Sops finds some decent damage. Gamma ends up poked, so do a couple other members. But JinguBang keeps Aqua stuck in mid, so this is still a relatively even fight.
Completely even, but the side of Mexiety Onset does have that leverage in Fire Giant to sustain up the fight. Yep. If Bloogy Woogys continue to use their ultimates, they need to start finding some kills with it, because poking out Mexiety Onset at this point isn't really an option with that sustain that they have.
Crimson still has his ultimate, and JinguBang still has his. Comes right to the back line. Crimson, though, is able to make it back out of there. JinguBang has to retreat, and the Phoenix still has not taken that much damage. It's over half, but now in comes Diesel to find a couple more shots. MandoWarrior gets to the back line and shuts down Blugin. The left side Phoenix is down, which takes away a lot of the backup damage there from Bloogy and the Woogys. Sops wants to get aggressive as well. They're locking down Aquarius for yet another kill, and Andinster can't find the wall. So the left side Phoenix does drop. But can maybe Bloogy Woogys punish them on this disengage? Mexiety Onset of some low HP bars. They're low on relics, but they're able to regroup with their team, start sustaining up, and they might get mid-Phoenix too.
They're healing relatively quickly, but Diesel being as low health as he is, if Andinster can find a decent dunk onto him, it should be able to turn this fight around in their favor. That's a nice mez from Gamma, finding 3.
It's tough to get a 3-man mez and still find almost nothing in terms of damage. Andinster drops in, and Andinster drops out. He's absolutely done after that dunk. Mid-Phoenix falls as well. MandoWarrior has the dazzling offensive on Crimson, but couldn't find all 3 shots, so there is no stun. The Titan now under attack, as it says on the screen. It's below half HP, below a quarter. That's it. Mexiety Onset shut down Bloogy Woogys in about 32 minutes of play.
If you draft for the early game, you kind of need to win it, right? But instead, Mexiety Onset runs with the early game, they run with the mid game. At no point were Bloogy Woogys truly in the driver's seat. They were by no means out of the game until around 25 minutes when we start to see that gold lead really exponentially grow towards the 8K mark. But that was a good set from both teams. Andinster performing very well, did a good job keeping his team afloat. ErupTCrimson didn't fall a single time the entirety of the match and found relatively decent damage, 20,000. That's some of the highest in the game, matching the enemy team as well. But it just wasn't quite enough. They couldn't find the kill confirms that they needed to move in towards the objectives. When Bloogy Woogys did win a fight, it would be a 3-for-2 or a 4-for-3, so it wasn't really enough for them to move in towards the objectives. But when Mexiety won a fight, they were relatively clean picks and then got those objectives for free.
Yeah, and Diesel's play was particularly impressive that game. I'm glad we started with that clip of him. He found a solo kill over in left onto Blugin, I believe. He got that kill into Andinster there as well, and he helped generate a lot of pressure for his team to kind of open that map back up. Andinster also, I feel like there were some execution errors from Blugin, the Woogys, Mifflin. Remember that gank over in solo that should have been, when they had the 2-for-1 advantage, should have just been a kill, but instead ends up being a 1-for-1 trade. It's just those plays like that where they're not quite executing as cleanly as we know they're capable of. and it allows Mexiety Onset to kind of make it through that early game and get to the point where they're a bit stronger in the mid to late.
You have to wonder how much of that misplay was rooted in the frustration of knowing that your comp was so much more powerful in the early, and they just couldn't quite find their footing. That play happened around 6 minutes. Mexiety Onset already had that lead at that point, so they were looking to take plays everywhere around the map. We saw it in the duo lane where Gamma was kind of aggressing 1 versus 2 on his own, where Chernobog wasn't quite in range to move up. We saw it over in Soul lane where they're diving the tower on an Amaterasu who has ultimate as well as the self-sustain in her heals. They need to, yes, use your early aggression, but use it wisely.
That's going to have to be the plan for them in game number 2. Remember, it's a best of 3, though, so obviously they can still get back into the set. They just got to get themselves back on track. It'll be a quick break. We'll be right back with some more SCC. And welcome back to the SCC. We are still in the middle of Bloogy and the Woogys up against Mexiety Onset here in North America, and it is still Finch and Mifflin bringing you the call. And game number 1, I think, was a bit surprising the way that one ended up going. I don't want to make it sound like Bloogy and the Woogys had a comp that could only work early, but it was certainly more early focused than Mexiety's, who need some time to get online. But it felt like Mexiety were driving the pace early there, Mifflin. They got ahead. Bloogy and the Woogys had a hard time competing with them, and eventually Mexiety Onset went on to grab the win.
I think saying they drove the pace might be slightly off. Yes, they had that early game lead, but it's off the fact that Bloogy and the Woogys were looking for that early aggression all over the map, and they were just picking their fights poorly, truly. They were taking fights under towers, they were taking fights in the enemy jungles. Any fight they could, if they smelled blood, they chased it. And Mexiety Onset, it's not hard to play defensively well when the enemy team is using their aggression poorly, and they did take that early game lead. Saying that they were the ones aggressing and making the pace, I think might be a little bit off, but functionally, it's about the same.
No, that's fair to say. Mexiety Onset did a good job kind of biding their time until eventually, you had JinguBang building up plenty of crit, Diesel getting a really sick lead over in the left lane, and then Merlin, say what you want to about the win rate, I brought it up earlier, obviously still very, very good at multiple stages of the game, so that they all had a really good draft that time. And when you have a Geb late game too, it can be so hard to kill anyone. Like Andinster had a couple of good dunks, it just didn't matter because Geb shields were there, or shockwaves to interrupt, or cataclysms, just well played from the whole squad. So into the picks and bans for game number 2 we go now, Mifflin. Bloogy and the Woogys will be in that first pick spot, and Mexiety will be responding. And these are the same bans I believe we had in game number 1, the Unbots Terra. The Thor different though, they're going to take that one away this time, and that's Bloogy and the Woogys banning it away from JinguBang and Mexiety Onset.
Not often you see a team respect ban themselves. Yes, Thor is a decent god. Having global pressure is always nice. However, we haven't seen him perform as well this season as he has in the past. There are so many other jungle picks that we see more prevalent nowadays, and Hun bots and Kamazots, which we've seen banned now. However, I think using one of your bans on Thor when there's so many other more potent characters available to be picked might be a bit of a misplay, especially knowing that Mexiety Onset has not valued Thor nearly at all this season.
But I do like this taking the Merlin away. I believe Mexiety Onset top pick this one in response to Bloogy and the Woogys first picking the Thor. So this time they're going to trade that Kukulkan that Crimson actually played really well. He did not die in the entire game. They're going to trade that out for the Merlin for him. And Mexiety Onset are doubling down on the tankiness, aren't they? On the beef for the front line, so to speak, because they got the Xing and the Geb. So I have to imagine one of these guys going over solo. I think we have seen Mando play a Geb solo before. It can be a bit slow, but he'll take it over there into the solo lane sometimes. What are you thinking here, man?
I'm thinking that I'm praying that it is Xing solo purely because it brings a lot more pressure than Geb. I mean, we could say all we want about anyone playing any role anywhere. I've seen Meerkat drop into Geb mid and ranked at the Grandmaster level probably 50 times. It doesn't mean it's good. It's bad, actually, so don't get any ideas, chat. Xing solo, however, does bring the survivability as well as the HP 5, and with the blue buff, he's going to be able to span those abilities a lot, and his ultimate's going to be decent for following up any ganks that he gets into that short lane. I like the fact that they did elect the third pick, the Kukulkan. Having it happen in the third pick, I know it's a highly contested pick, but you know that Bloogy and the Woogys aren't going to take it because they have the Merlin first selected, so they can get their pick of these tanky targets in the Xing and the Geb early on. Bloogy and the Woogys electing to get that Xball and Erlang Shen online. Seems like they are continuing on with the trend of looking for that early aggression, I imagine we see Erlang go towards the jungle, especially since they are likely thinking that it is a Jing Shen solo, and that is a bad matchup for Erlang Shen, as Jing Shen is going to detract from a lot of the auto attack damage that Erlang can bring.
Yeah, we'll see where it is. Erlang Shen could even end up going to something like support too. There's a lot of options for Bloogy Woogys. So with this early, or with this Erlang Shen picked up early, it could be a bit of a flex pick. The Jormungandr and the King Arthur banned away. So I don't know, Mexiety Onset seem pretty sure that it's not going to be Erlang Shen solo, since they're banning away all these solo lane picks. And Bloogy Woogys banning away plenty of junglers, taking the Robin and the Ratatoskr. Those are both junglers who can have some impact a bit early on in the game. Maybe they're worried Mexiety Onset wanted an aggressive jungler to start the game off as they lock in the Jing Wei for yet another top tier pick. At this point, they got a lot of them.
Not often that Jingwei makes it through that second ban phase. I like what they're thinking on the side of Bloogy Woogys with those bans, because looking at Mexiety Onset's comp, they really don't have those bridge gods, and usually you do want them out of the jungle. That early aggression from Robin could be super hard to deal with, especially having Merlin on your team. He's got such a short distance escape, as well as X-Wall should be relatively easy for Robin to chase down. Bit of a Robin specialist myself, played that god quite a bit back in the console days. But unfortunately for them, Bakasura getting picked up on the side of Blugin.
10-second cooldown, Myth. It's so difficult. You're so impressive to me, Myth. Oh, and then ultimate to get you out whenever. Oh, it's so talented. Yeah, Myth, come on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sick. I'm pretty sick. Specialist popped off with it. You might have won a world championship or two. Peek in that background, you'll see my ring here.
Oh yeah, not bad.
Yeah, it's over there. It doesn't show up on the camera too well, sorry. But it is there, I promise.
I could see the glow. I could see the imminence of victory and talent coming off it, so don't you worry. It'll be the Dodgy from Mexiety Onset instead. We were wondering what jungler they'd go to in a world where the Robin, the Ratatoskr, some of those early game leaning ones were banned out. And I think Dodgy can be strong at multiple stages, so I think Mexiety Onset, especially with all this extra tank presence, have done a really good job of finding someone who can burn these beads. Now it's going to be even harder to have them for the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel and for the Cataclysm, when you also got to worry about the Palo.
Yeah, there's so much CC set up on the side of Mexiety Onset that they're going to set up for that Spear of the Nine win so well. So many beads burners. Normally you only see 2 true dedicated beads burners on a team. Now they have 3 in the Jing Shen, the Daji, and the Geb. So it's going to be easy to find these setups, or at least it should be. Gamma dealing so much damage to JinguBang in the early. We see this invade all the time. The only goal of support coming in here is to slow down the jungler, make it hard for them to want to farm, make it slower for them so that your jungler can get a little bit of a lead. Yes, you are sacrificing some of the farm on your support, as you generally don't get to seal away the buffs. Instead, though, Erlang Shen can go ahead and move in towards the enemy blue buff, and he should be able to take it away relatively easily, which is nearly the best case scenario for an invade like this.
Yeah, and I think that that's what something like a warrior support can do pretty well when they look for those invades, especially someone like Erlang Shen, right, with his passive. He brings so much extra early damage onto these camps, and he's able to quite effectively strip away some of this jungle on the chaos side, even if he couldn't actually, take anything away from the speed buff. He delayed JinguBang well enough on this Daji, kind of sent him off his normal pathing, certainly denying some of that farm over to the side of MandoWarrior as well, too. So I think that this is a successful early game for Gamma. It'd be hard to say it wasn't.
Oh, it absolutely was. He forces out the potion from the Daji, as well as forcing her to pick up the Hog. She's got no potions available anymore. Her sustain's going to be relatively low. It's going to be hard for her to finish boots before that first back, which, as a jungler, one of the worst feelings in the game is having a back before you can finish your boots. It slows down your rotation path through your own jungle, so you're not farming as much. It's slowing down your gank potential as well. It's not a great look.
But it is going to be the Xing Chen over in the song, like you were saying. And I was thinking, which god would I rather have in my early game team fights? And for me, there's just no world where it isn't Xing Chen. But this is exactly why you'd rather have him over here, because against this Odin, the Geb would be under tower all game long, right? He would just be sitting around waiting. But Xing Chen, on the other hand, is so much more competitive over here, can absolutely battle back. Just a bit unfortunate for him that he has to start with a bit of a deficit thanks to Gamma's good start to the game on that Erlang Shen.
If you showed me this lane and told me that MandoWarrior started with a deficit, I wouldn't wholly believe you. Yes, he is struggling on the farm and the wave clear, but he isn't able to find it.
They should be able to find, though, first blood, shutting down MandoWarrior there on the right-hand side, man. Yeah, he's in some trouble over there on that Xing Chen. Crimson in some trouble in mid lane too. Has to use the beads to try and get away from the slow. So in goes andinster to try and find a return kill, but Sops avoids it. But the Aegis, but Gamma's here. A pen would be enough to find the kill, but he can't throw it. He takes 2 tower shots, and now JinguBang can use that Trickster Spear to get closer. The pen can't find anything over the wall, but maybe they could still get a red buff invade. andinster has the best confirm in the game with Bakasura and makes it out of there.
Yeah, imagine if you could just like eat a buff and it's yours after that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that might.
Mortbklyn in a little bit of trouble now. Bakasura and andinster finding that early aggression. The knockup's going to go ahead and confirm the kill. Unfortunately, andinster does lose his beads there, but it's not an enormous deal at this point, especially considering that Daji is level 3, so you don't have to be worried about that Palau for quite a bit. And the blue buff and back camp's getting invaded by Gamma and Aquarius. I mean, this is looking ugly. Bloogy the Woogys truly in the driver's seat, picking their engagements well, finding the 2-0 kills to 0 deaths, as well as the early lead in 1,400 gold. It's only looking bad. I keep saying it. Stealing 1 buff, not a huge deal. Stealing 2, enormous. Taking Sop's life in mid at 3 minutes 40, also a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt, does it? As they find a 3rd kill. Gamma going to continue to strip away the farm. And this is what these warrior supports can do sometimes, Mifflin, man. They really do give you this extra early game presence that's hard to match when you go double guardian, like Mexiety Onset did. Even if one of your guardians is essentially just a warrior in the Xing Chen who does magical damage, the Geb is just such a non-factor early. There's no way he's going to be able to match Gamma's impact. It's just not available. Geb does not have the tools, and Gamma's been everywhere on the map. andinster has been aggressive right there with him, trusting in that space that's been created, and they've benefited from it really well so far, nearly 2,000 gold ahead.
Yeah, you would be hard-pressed to find a guy that can challenge Erlang Shen at level 1, short of maybe a Kamazotz. There's not much you can do. andinster finding that ult on a Sops, Bud's having a hard game. Mort trades his own life in exchange for his mid laner, as a good support should do. His life is worth a lot less. Aegis wasn't available, unfortunately, for the Kukulkan, so no way that both of them make it out alive there.
Gamma was really considering going past JinguBang to try and get to Sops, but then he realized that's a favorable trade for him at this point in the game, and so he just takes that trade up against the JinguBang. And Daji can feel a bit weak sometimes if she doesn't have that ultimate available to her. The horrible burns is a strong stim, but it's just hard to outbox the Erlang Shen, and now Gamma has that ultimate available to him. He goes right into it to find the 2-man taunt, into the knockup, into the pen. JinguBang is quite low, but the Geb shield from Mortbklyn is enough to keep him alive, just barely. JinguBang makes it out of there. So now the full disengage from Crimson, stripping away the red buff right in front of the face of Sops and trying to make the disengage, but he does get hit by that Zephyr, and this might be trouble for Gamma too. Diesel catches up to him with the airstrike, but Crimson is trying to self-peel, can't get out of the tornado. The slow hits 2 beads to try and immune it, but the autos are all connecting. It's just not enough damage.
That was some of the strangest juking I've ever seen from a Merlin. He walked in the jungle, he walked back out, just taking more auto attacks. Sops, nice attempt from the ultimate there. andinster, do you know he's there? Are you looking for him?
Oh, he certainly does now know that he is here. Sops' chance of survival quite low as Aquarius comes back in and finds that kill. So Mexiety Onset have found 1 kill in all of this, which is nice, right? You try and shut Gamma down a bit, but remember, that's still the support. Still one of the less valuable kills you can get. It is more valuable in a warrior support if you can try and mitigate some of their early game, but Bloogy the Woogys undeniably in a really good spot.
I mean, they can continue this aggression almost anywhere at any point. JinguBang just now getting his ultimate 6.5 minutes in this game. Look at the other side. Bakasura already has a 2-level lead, electing to go the no boot start as well. It's going to be a golden blade, likely straight into the hastened, or maybe even a stone cutting if he wants to get some more damage online early. It's going to be very difficult for Mexiety to get online, especially since they don't have any defense available on their tanks yet. They don't have any true damage available on their carries, whereas on the other end, Bakasura is an early game pub stomp character that does translate relatively well into the late, in that he's going to probably build some crit. It's going to be hard. Bloogy the Woogys didn't draft completely for the early or completely for the late. This is a well-rounded comp, and the fact that they're this far in the lead at this point in the game is going to be pretty indicative of the rest of the match.
Well, that's why I think as JinguBang gets burned down by Crimson, Brooklyn is in some trouble as well in the back. We'll have to talk a bit more about that later as he's trying to roll his way out of there, and he is indeed able to make it happen, so Mortbklyn escapes, but now the Gold Fury on the menu for Blugin the Woogys. It sounds to me like the boys are hungry, so why not eat? Gold Fury at half. Sops on the way, though, as is Diesel. This might not be as free for them as they thought. Mexiety Onset do strip away the Gold Fury, but can they disengage? It looks like they can. Really only Crimson looking for the chase. He flickers in, but his damage is out of range. Diesel makes it out of there. And Myth, that is Mexiety Onset getting something pretty good back.
It's not often you see a level 6 Kukulkan walk into a Gold Fury and steal it with Zephyr, especially considering Spear of the Nine Winds was available. But he does, he gets away with it, no one dies off the steal. It closes the gold gap just a little bit, now only 2,000 in favor of Blugin the Woogys. But take a peek at that experience chart. 8 minutes into the game, 3,400 rather experience. That's an enormous deal. As well as if you take a peek at the map, no jungle is available for Mexiety Onset right now, whereas on the side of Blugin the Woogys, the entirety of the right side jungle and left side was still available after that Gold Fury, so this XP gap is only going to continue to grow.
And this is what warrior supports can do for you sometimes, right? Because it's not a tremendous risk to send your warrior or your support in early to try and harass JinguBang. But because of how successful it went, he had JinguBang down to like 30%, I want to say, HP, maybe even lower off the back of that pressure. JinguBang had to head all the way over to the left. That meant the entire right side of the jungle was up for Gamma to strip away. And that hurts MandoWarrior too. Aqua gets a lot of free pressure in that solo lane as a result of that too. It puts Sops a bit behind because JinguBang can't help him confirm his buffs nearly as much, and obviously Mortbklyn on the Geb is just not all that relevant in the early game. That's part of the pick, that's just baked in. And so it was a bit of a low risk, high reward play for Blugin the Woogys, and this is one of those times where it panned out.
Yeah, worst case scenario, Gamma dies and he just walks back to lane at level 1 where he'd have already been in lane at level 1, so it's pretty good. Instead, he steals away the jungle, as you said. He forces out Daji early, keeping her at level 4 until about 6.5 minutes in the game. No jump available for JinguBang. He's stuck in the cage, but no follow-up for the Odin. Instead, Mexiety Onset find their second kill of the match onto Diesel, doing his absolute best he can. Gonna still be slightly behind in XP from the X-Wall, who has done literally nothing this game. Blugin's been just sitting content in lane farming and still maintaining the complete deficit with Diesel.
Yeah, I assume he hit the ultimate a couple times and just raked in some free assists out there, perhaps, something like that. Yeah, he's had a nice early game here, just kind of staying even with Diesel on the left-hand side. But Diesel had a really great performance in game 1, and if he's going to be the one that's kind of that's staying even in game number 2, then that might have been my pick, just based on how he's performed so far. So I don't think Mexiety Onset, all things considered, are in as bad of a spot as they could have been. They just got to kill into andinster, it's going to slow down that Bakasura farm, and they stripped away that Gold Fury early. Blugin the Woogys, they have not left the door open, but there's a crack in it that maybe shouldn't have been there, as Crimson has his beads forced out to get away from the Pala.
JinguBang and Sops poked out relatively hard here. Gamma decides not to rotate over. He gets spotted out by Mortbklyn. Instead, they could move in towards this mid tower. It's so low health that they are able to strip that mid tower away. It's going to open up the map for earlier invades, or easier invades rather, onto the speed buff and red buff from the side of Mexiety Onset. Instead, we know it, we all know it, Kukulkan has sick defense, tornadoes. You're not getting in.
It's difficult. If they need to, Mexiety Onset could always potentially bunker down around that Kukulkan. MandoWarrior avoids the gank coming out from andinster, who rotated over on the Bakasura. Good use of Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. JinguBang is lurking in the jungle, but they're facing a heavy experience deficit. I doubt they really want to get too crazy for this fight in right, so they just let andinster go. He'll be rotating back into the jungle to strip what farm he can from the Chaos side, but ends up finding nothing there, just comes back towards Crimson. So now, Mifflin, when you're in this kind of spot, when this composition, when this warrior support has worked this well through the early game, how do you try and combat this and come back in? Is Gamma willing to take some extra damage to try and strip with a red and does not get it?
I'll tell you exactly what my comms are like in situations like this, and I want to preface it with I am lying when I say it to my team. Guys, it doesn't matter. We got the late game. We just keep our heels dug in, play safe, slow down this bleed. We got this in the late. I didn't mean a single word of it, and Sops proving my point as he falls to Gamma in mid as well. JinguBang, level 9 at this point, looking to get some regression back, but instead loses his life. On the other end, MandoWarrior getting aggressed on as well. And the entire time, here's my comms. Guys, we got this, bro. It doesn't matter that we died there. Just keep it up. And again, it is a lie. It's so hard. Tier 1 tower falls to the side of Bloogy Woogys. We're continuing the aggression. Mort literally into mode, dashing into Blugin there. Does stop the aggression onto the Tier 2 tower, but it's not quite enough. The gold deficit now 3,000 in favor of the Bloogy Woogys. And my comms, again, guys, it's fine, but it's not.
Yeah, truly all you can do is try and bunker down, maybe look to hope that Bloogy Woogys overcommit and make a bit of a mistake, as Diesel takes quite a bit of poke from Gamma as well as from Crimson, but the Primal Fury doesn't get started. Andinster helps with Aqua getting this Pyromancer, so Bloogy Woogys continue to expand this lead. We're only 13 minutes into this game, so the lead, it's almost magnified or amplified, so to speak, because of how early it is when you consider what they've been able to develop. But look at the Hunters. They're still relatively even. Maybe keeping Diesel in the back pocket can be that sort of escape hatch from Mexiety Onset to try and stall them into a later stage of the game where they can be more even.
I mean, with the XT deficit as it is, though, yes, gold not too bad, and the ADCs are even, but an ADC is only good fighting around that gold fury, and once you're fighting around the gold fury, it should be a team fight at that point, grouped up by 4 from both teams, with the early gold fury picked up by Mexiety Onset. They pull it, decide it's probably not the best idea to poke the hive, if you would, from Bloogy Woogys, and Andinster spots it out relatively early. But that Oracle Vision should be huge for them. It's going to make it so much harder for Bloogy Woogys to find that objective.
Aqua goes deep into the enemy backline to try and zone them out. That leaves Diesel isolated. He gets the airstrike off over the wall, but where can he land when there are sharks everywhere? The initial dash gets him sub-moving, but Andinster's right there to cut him down and give Diesel his first death of the game. Mortbklyn in some trouble and left as well. Crimson gets that kill. Sops starting to fall as well as Blugin shuts him down. The Palau does pull one, but what kind of consolation prize is that, as MandoWarrior now getting locked down underneath his Tier 2 tower 14 minutes into the game. That's a solo lane Xing Chen getting burned, and Crimson gets in close to find the damage. A 4-for-0 wipe in favor of Bloogy Woogys. They'll get this Tier 2 tower in mid, and JinguBang just kind of left on an island back there starving for farm.
Not only do you get the Tier 2 tower, but the unfortunate timing for Mexiety Onset is their buffs are spawning around this time. Their red buff did get stolen away by Bloogy Woogys. Gold Fury is available. They're able to farm up that soul lane as well. The only thing they really got in return there is JinguBang got a singular mid-wave to his name to go from level 10 to 11. But if you take a peek over to Andinster, level 15, and now JinguBang getting chased out by the Crimson, I mean, things are not looking great. But my comms, again, guys, it's fine.
Your comms are positive, right, at this point.
Yeah.
Inside your head, everything's on fire, as it's been a really rough early start to the game for Mexiety Onset. Bloogy Woogys showing what they could do when that plane takes off and gets a little air underneath it. Last time, when they had some aggression in the early game planned, it never panned out. Mexiety Onset were able to defend it successfully, but Bloogy Woogys have executed much better here in game number 2. We're only 15.5 minutes in. They've got an 8,000 gold lead, nearly 9,000 at this point, and all the pressure on the map. I mean, look, MandoWarrior just trying to get what farm he can on that right-hand side, really not even rotating these fights for the most part, because he's just dying when he gets there.
What do you do when Gamma is the same level as your mid laner and he's running at them as the support? It's hard, right? There's not much you can do, short of pray that Diesel is the best player on the planet and just solos Blugin, but it wasn't quite enough, doesn't find the kill, trades out Blugin's Aegis. Not much commitment from Diesel there. He should be able to get out with his life. Whether or not they can get a gank from JinguBang onto him to really optimize on the fact that he had to burn his active there is going to be difficult, considering the fact that, again, JinguBang is level 11 and hasn't quite finished his third item yet.
Aqua even grabbing that Tier 2 tower over, or Tier 1, excuse me, over in right. Andinster continuing to look for farm on the Chaos side. And they're in a position where they can get a rotation over from Aqua and maybe even pose more of a threat. They're going to step into the Tier 2 tower range and get some damage in. It's really just Mortbklyn nearby to try and defend. I don't think they're very scared of him at all at this point in the game. They even drop the cage. They lock Mortbklyn down. There's the burn, and Andinster gets the first kill. MandoWarrior goes for his ultimate to try and disrupt them, but at this point, they're correct. They can keep threatening this Tier 2. Though Blugin is in a bit of trouble. JinguBang able to stay close to him, only level 12, goes up to the Palau, but they don't even need it. Diesel hits the last shot to try and make it a 1-for-1, but this fight continues over in right. They still haven't gotten the Tier 2 tower, Mifflin, but they still have a ton of pressure.
The pressure is on, and Gamma is chasing as well, but this is the one target you can't really run down, Gamma. That's a level 17 Jing Wei. You got to be cautious of that one. Diesel, truly the only light at the end of the tunnel for Mexiety Onset, the only one really capable of taking a 1v1 situation. But by that same note, 1v1s are the only thing that he truly can win if Bloogy and the Woogys elect to put 2 members onto him. They've got such a lead that it's going to be difficult for anyone to peel them off. If Mexiety Onset moves in to try and peel them out, the best they can offer is a level 14 Jing Shen matching up against level 17s and 18s on the side of Bloogy and the Woogys. So if Diesel does get aggressed on and people move in to protect him, it could just put them out of position, turning what would have been a 1-for-0 into more 4-0. It's a tough situation to be in. I imagine Bloogy and the Woogys are going to look for the Fire Giant as their next objective, and I wouldn't want Mexiety Onset to really move in and try and defend it. Maybe send in Sops on that Kukulkan to try and steal it away with Spirit of the Nine Winds. But taking an actual fight around that objective is going to be really hard to do.
It's going to be difficult. Mexiety Onset really can't afford to try and step in on even footing, so they need some extra help, like maybe finding a lone Gamma all alone. They get the beads out from him with that Pal-Ow, so Gamma survives. And that's something he's gotten some good usage out throughout this early game. He's been aggressive on this Warrior support, but he hasn't thrown his life away. You know, he's been aggressive, but it's been measured, at least to some extent. And I think having an early lead doesn't hurt with that, as Diesel wants to get aggressive again on the Blugin. Not going to find much there, though. He gets out of there with the Rising Jack.
It's really a slow play from this point. It seems like Bloogy and the Woogys have kind of lost the idea of what they're looking to do. Yes, they are continually moving through the enemy jungle. They don't want to do fire, it seems like, but they absolutely could, so if they chose to do so. Instead, they're just walking through the jungle, looking for kills continually. Yes, that feels good. Maybe it's a little bit cathartic after last game, but you kind of want to win this one, right? Look for the objectives, not the kills.
Mortbklyn has his ultimate forced out. Sops is stuck in the cage, so there hasn't been that much follow-up, but now it's on its way. Gebshield buys him some time to at least get the ultimate off Shockwave to try and protect as well, but Mortbklyn, more like wet paper than an actual front line at this point. He folds easily. Trouble for Sops on the right-hand side, too, as Crimson catches up to him and finds another easy kill. So it takes them a little bit, it's meandering, but they eventually get there to where they want to be. They take the tier 2 tower in left, and they find some kills. And now they have a chance to collapse on the MandoWarrior, who still has the leap, allows him to reposition. Diesel comes in as well, but he's walked into the fire, and now he's going to get burned. Aegis allows him a little bit of time, but the pin is there. As soon as he spawned, he falls again, and Diesel in some trouble as he falls. And really, this is what Bloogy and the Woogys can do. They've got such a tremendous lead, they can just keep pushing them.
They could continue to push, but they have to know that they've done such a good job in this game to keep these guys low level that their spawn timers are low. Sops up in 5 seconds. Maybe dying a lot and being low level is the strat when your Titan's getting aggressed on like this.
No, I think that's just the end here. Bloogy and the Woogys,
that's GG.
Able to close that one out. It only takes 20 minutes, Mifflin, for them to grab the win, and if I'm being honest, it was never really in much doubt. Gamma had such a dominant start here to this game. Mifflin, is it really as easy as that? Is just this time the support invade strat worked?
The support invade strat worked, and not only did it work, but it worked as absolutely well as it possibly could have. When your jungler is that far behind, it's so hard to play the game because that's essentially one less teammate in every team fight possible, especially since Bloogy and the Woogys are looking to only really find their aggression off the back of andinster rotating into these fights, or Gamma as the secondary jungler of that game. JinguBang just couldn't match the aggression at all. It's so hard. By the same note, not to slander junglers completely, if your lanes are losing as well, it's hard for a jungler to get back into it. And the lanes were losing too. Jungle and your lanes losing? What are you going to do? You're probably going to lose, and that's what happened 20 minutes into that game.
Yeah, I mean, it really was this sort of cascading effect that was happening, right? As this was a play from Mortbklyn. He gave himself up to keep his mid laner alive. Could have maybe Gebshield himself and made it out, but it would have cost Sops his life. It's just that because of the way that early game went, it went so poorly that MandoWarrior fell behind, JinguBang fell behind, and Sops fell behind, all instantaneously, thanks to Gamma's pressure and constantly stripping away that right side jungle. Then when you factor in that Geb is mid to late game at best, when he's going to start coming online and truly being helpful, it really only left Diesel, who was fighting well, but he's kind of the only thing that was going well for their squad. Everyone else was just constantly under siege really the entirety of that game. I think that is one that you can, that if you're Mexiety Onset, you kind of write off. You say we were never really even in that game, and perhaps they can regroup for game number 3 and try and look better.
They're going to have to, and they've proven that they can take games. They took game 1 of this set, but as I was saying during that match, I want to go into it a little bit further. When only one member of your team is doing well, this happens a couple times. That means that you're going to want to play around them and keep them alive in the fight, but that also puts a target on their head as the only one that's capable of doing anything. So the entirety of Bloogy and the Woogies dive onto Diesel the second that they can. Mexiety Onset tries to group around him and keep him alive. Instead, Diesel does fall because they're all so far behind. And now that you're grouped up around Diesel, you're close enough that you're going to get gone on as well, whereas more often than not, you would have just been running away otherwise and maybe saved your life. So it's a bit of a trap in that we have to keep them alive, but if we try, we might die. It's not easy.
Yeah, really the burden on you as the most valuable person is just to be safe, right? More so than to have everyone else come in and try and be your bodyguards. It can be tough, though, as we saw in that game, as Bloogy and the Woogies recover from their stumble in game 1. The all-important game 3 coming up, though, in just a few minutes. And welcome back to the SCC. We are still in this set between Mexiety Onset and Bloogy and the Woogies. It's been a competitive one so far here, Mifflin. And really what I think has happened in these two sets is that in both games, we saw Bloogy and the Woogies draft a bit more early game focused. In game 1, they never got their lead and had a hard time winning. In game number 2, though, they got a hefty lead, largely off the back of Gamma's early invades on the Erlang Shen support. And in that game, really, Mexiety Onset were never competitive. So now into this game number 3, I have to wonder, are we really going to see 3 games in a row where Mexiety Onset kind of concede the early game a little bit?
I have to imagine that they're going to try and shift the focus. They showed in game 1 that, yes, conceding the early game isn't a death sentence for your match, but in game 2, they saw it could be if you do give it up enough. So I imagine we'll see maybe an early game shift of focus, or maybe someone will rotate over to try and deal with an early aggression from Bloogy and the Woogies. I imagine we'll also see another invade because, yeah, Gamma kind of single-handedly won them the game within the first 2 minutes of that match, so why not try it again?
Yeah, it's a flyer, right? It is a low investment, high return kind of play, and I think that's why we see those invades happen so often, right? Is that there's just you're not enough at risk for you to go up there and give that play a try, and that's why it ends up working out for Gamma that time. And really, it was a cascading effect where there wasn't enough pressure from other sources to help JinguBang once he ended up falling behind. Everyone else was kind of sitting on their hands, hoping that Daji would be their bridge, and it never really materialized for them to make the late game. So we go into the picks and bans for game number 3 with all of this kind of early game discussion hanging around these two teams. Mexiety Onset will be the first pick spot. I believe Bloogy and the Woogies were first pick last game, so Mexiety Onset have elected to be first this time. And they ban away the Kukulkan. They don't want to give that one over to the mid laner of Bloogy and the Woogies and let them be too comfortable.
Banning away the Kukulkan kind of tells me that they are going to be looking to play aggressive, but it could also tell me that they're just students of the meta and that Kukulkan is really strong. But seeing as they hadn't banned that at any point earlier on, kind of shows me that they are looking to play more aggressive, as Kukulkan is one of the most defensive gods that you could play in the middle of the map. But then again, being first pick banning away Persephone tells me the opposite, so I'm not sure that maybe they're just trying to ban away the meta picks and trying to get a more standard game.
Yeah, they're just trying to ban good stuff, it looks like to me. They're banning away the Kukulkan, the Persephone, and the Camazotz. Bloogy, bans away the Merlin, the Emoja, and the Unbots. So there is still the Xing Chen that's out there to try and pick up. There's definitely still some strong picks, but a lot of the really top-tier stuff has been taken off the table. We've seen the Thor valued a lot in this set. I wonder if andinster will go back to that. The Bakasura game was fine from him. I just don't think they needed him to do much that game. He certainly played it fine, played it well, got his kills. It's just his number wasn't particularly called. So I'm not really surprised to see him back on this Thor here in game 3.
Yeah, we saw a lot more impact from andinster on that Thor. Yes, as you said, he did find the kills on Bakasura, but at the end of that game, only 8,800 damage. Not wildly impressive, especially considering he went for a sustained damage build in the triple katana. But he, as you said again, wasn't really required, as Gamma was kind of doing the gambit of it, just running them into the ground as that secondary jungler. Well, I'm not going to call him a secondary jungler for that game. He was the jungler, and Bakasura was just kind of helping clear up camps. Robin and Terra selected on the side. Yeah, Mexiety Onset pick up that Robin and Terra, finding that yes, that bridge jungler in the Robin is going to be able to find that early aggression, as well as Terra has fantastic team fight and gank potential in that 3v3 in mid. On the other side, Bloogy Woogys going for Discordia as their mid laner. Not the safest god available that you could take, especially taking a peek at Robin and Terra, who are going to be completely W key for the entirety of the first 10 minutes. And you called it earlier, Mexiety Onset shifting their focus towards that early game with this draft.
Yeah, a little bit, I'd say, but they're sticking with the double Guardian composition, which really got manhandled in Game 2, didn't it? I think that was kind of the biggest part that hurt them there, was that there was no other sort of source of pressure that could help them out once JinguBang fell behind. But this time, I think Terra and Xing, it's a little different than a Geb. Those guys are going to be a bit more relevant a bit sooner than I think that Geb will, so I don't mind the double Guardian in this spot. Plus, they're going to pair that with the Robin to be the bridge, the Ho Yi, who's strong on multiple stages, and it looks like a Poseidon alongside it, so kind of an old school draft, I feel like, from Mexiety.
It is an old school draft indeed, but take a look at Bloogy Woogys. They've got that Erlang Shen again, who somehow made it through that second draft phase. Discordia is going to be able to deal damage as well off the back of Erlang's engagement. Mercury is going to be that late game hyper carry that you're looking to get onto early. And this time,
picks Thor,
it's I think so. I really do.
I think so.
If you take a peek at Discordia as well, now Erlang Shen is going to be dealing even more damage in the early off the back of that passive. We saw him aggressing early on before. Now he's going to be putting it with a nitrous. He's going to be going as fast and hard as he possibly can the entire time.
How do you not say Fast and Furious? Oh, fine. That's fine. You let that pass you by. Instead, you say whatever other ridiculous thing that happened. As Sops under a ton of pressure already. Come on, guys. This is exactly what happened last time. Gamma farmed in the early. Sops takes a bunch of free poke there. That's not a good start there for them. And he's in perfect position to grab this speed. And look at these starts. I don't even really think that JinguBang is going to be looking to try and contest him over this one. Gamma should be able to grab it pretty freely at this point, and then just to move on. And up at the top, Mortbklyn's doing the same thing. So they kind of just trade their speeds, let the supports get them, and both junglers start elsewhere.
I mean, losing your speed buff at any point in the game feels bad, but losing it before you even have your boots feels especially bad. It's not the best feeling in the world. Gamma just able to do whatever he wants at this point in the game, as well as andinster moving throughout the jungle on that Mercury, looking towards the enemy speed buff and the red buff now. It's not easy. It's hard for JinguBang at this point. The invade meta is so oppressive for junglers that it's insanely hard to play against. You can't really counterplay it. You could look towards the hog, but then you get poked out. You could send other members over there, but then you still lose out on the XP because you're splitting it. It's not easy or fun to play against, even in the slightest, especially from a god like Erlang Shen.
And this could be trouble for Mortbklyn. Sprint is enough to allow him to reposition and just barely get away from Gamma's wrath. And these two junglers, it does look as though JinguBang has come out slightly better in terms of like the gold per minute, experience per minute, as Mortbklyn comes back in again and JinguBang continues to trade. But they're both going to have to play without that speed buff. They're going to have to play off their normal rotations and their normal timers. So it's kind of a question of which one of these junglers can do a better job adapting and who's going to pull from where more. You know, is Sops going to have to struggle so JinguBang gets some more farm? Is Mortbklyn's in trouble? Strife ends up landing, and Gamma yet again finds the first blood and gets off to a good start. This is scary for Mexiety Onset.
All that pressure came off of Discordia on Crimson. Poseidon, Sops just hit level 2 towards the tail end of that engagement. The entirety of the time, Discordia was level 3, Poseidon was level 1. They couldn't match the clear, so they found the aggression under the tower. They had to tank the minion wave if they didn't want to lose gold to the tower. I mean, this invade start has bled out. Usually you see the lead more reflected towards the jungler, but this time it was onto Discordia.
Crimson in some trouble here in mid. JinguBang almost able to punish, but just can't quite stick with it. The erratic behavior does enough, and Crimson's able to make it out of there with, I can't imagine, very much HP at all, and will be taking that first back. But it's still helpful that JinguBang's able to force them off their timer, but Gamma, continuing his onslaught on the order side of the map, strips away the blue buff, and then heads right back out of there. Mortbklyn doesn't get there in time to defend, and MandoWarrior on this Xing solo can't rotate in to fight through.
Not even a little bit. Shen has a ton of sustain, he has a ton of CC, the ability to follow up on ganks or set up for ganks is really high, but the ability to fight on his own individually is relatively low at this point in the game. So as you said, he wasn't able to move in. Take a peek at that XP deficit. We're actually seeing a little bit of a lead onto JinguBang over andinster, but at the same time, we got a level lead just about through the support in favor of Erlang Shen. We've got about a level lead on Discordia, and it's even in the duo lane. These hunters, yes, Diesel's been the star of Mexiety Onset, but he hasn't really been afforded the opportunity to shine just yet. He's maintained this even state every game this set. All 3 games he's remained completely even, but the rest of his team has been lagging behind. This is the first time we've seen a slight lead onto JinguBang the entirety of the day, and he's playing an early game focused god, so we might be able to see some aggression towards that duo lane.
Aqua on the dive did end up taking some extra damage. Mando considered and does complete that back, so he'll have to TP back in. Sops in some trouble into mid-tier 1. Beads allows him to reposition, but he took a ton of damage courtesy of Gamma and andinster, who got aggressive. Aqua uses the ultimate to get away and right. Meanwhile, the fight continues in the middle lane. JinguBang is able to get back underneath the tier 1, even find some return damage as the root comes through from Mortbklyn, but he catches the ultimate coming out from Crimson to try and put in some good damage. Mortbklyn survives, though, and an unruly magic comes out as well. Just barely, that Terra makes it out of there.
You got to find those early kills, but luckily Terra does make it out with her tail between her legs. Mort, still though, getting forced out at this point, having to return to base at level 3 with already a deficit happening is not the best look. But at this point, even though she is at the deficit, her fight potential in team fights is slightly higher than Erlang Shen's. Her damage output should be higher because she went for the Shoes of the Focus, and her AoE is a lot higher. But Gamma, if anyone chooses to engage him 1v1 in the jungle, is going to be receiving that Erlang Shen's damage fully.
Gamma with another successful blue buff invade and has to hightail it out of there as well. Goes right into the mink form to try and live, but Sops wants to try and catch him out, has the whirlpool and has the Kraken. I think Gamma even used the beads to try and get away from the slow, but it just didn't help. In comes andinster on the Mercury, throws them back into the strike. That's perfect. Crimson shuts it all down with this Discord in the early game. Now they're up 3 kills to 1 overall, so even with a good kill that comes out into Gamma, you're happy, I think, to trade your support there.
You are happy to trade your support completely. Getting that lead onto the mid laner is so huge. She controls the center of the map just about as much as a jungler will as well. And having your mage get that early farm, she's going to be able to get that Chronos Pendant online a little bit more quickly. So her escape ability is going to go up. It's going to be harder for JinguBang to find these early ganks. Discordia, although not my favorite pick in mid, when she gets a lead, she's super hard to play against.
She can be, man. The Strife is such a popular tool for her, or such a powerful tool for her, better to say, as JinguBang is in some trouble. He's already used the overhead kick, so he's got no more help coming. Crimson gets a 3rd kill this game. He's been a part of all 4. It's been a really strong game with all this action happening around this mid and in the jungle from Crimson here so far. And Mifflin, I think we could say, man, Crimson really is the real deal. He was a strong player on console, one of the best players there, and the transition appears to be pretty easy for him over to PC, where he's been a strong player here in the SCC as well.
Historically, within the console scene, he was considered one of the top 3 mid laners in Season 2, or Season 3 and 4, rather. He was top 3, just slightly overshadowed by a certain 72 mid laner that was lying in the wings. Fortunately, he's able to find his home in the middle lane on PC now, and proving, again, that we've seen time and again, these console players can compete with the PC boys, especially if you take a peek over at Mexiety Onset. MandoWarrior, Diesel, Mort, they're all well-established players on PC.
Aqua gets another kill. They found 2 there as Sops and Mortbklyn end up falling. And now that Bloogy Woogys have found a way to get this early pressure going, they're looking a lot better. JinguBang trying to find a trade in all this, but can't do it. Aqua isn't able to find the hammer, but JinguBang is just so out of position that I don't think it matters. He eventually does clean up the kill. Gamma low on mana, but how much can MandoWarrior truly do by himself? He grabs the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. That's what he can do. Throw him back towards Sops, and Gamma does fall for his 2nd death of the game. But it's 7-2 in kills. Blugin and Woogie have had all the pressure.
Trading out your support for a jungler always feels good. And now Diesel, finding that early aggression, uses his jump aggressively, but Crimson's there. If he finds the CC, this should be enough to find the kill as well.
The ultimate does find the cripple, so Diesel couldn't have jumped out of there, but they can't keep up the chase. Diesel just barely makes it around the corner. Mortbklyn was there to back him up if need be, and could potentially have done enough to keep him alive. So Blugin the Woogys do not overcommit there in the jungle. But this has just been the invade, I feel like, strat kind of working so far for Blugin the Woogys. It wasn't so much that they invade and harass the jungles this time. It was that both junglers just kind of gave up the speed and started elsewhere. And then as a result of that, it felt as though Mexiety Onset had been a bit off their rhythm here this game. Sops has been getting picked on in the mid lane, so has Mortbklyn. Has it really just been a result of all that start, or has Blugin the Woogys just been playing it better since then?
Off the back of the start, Blugin the Woogys did get an initial boost towards their XP, but somehow JinguBang controlled the lanes very well, got that early XP lead back. So this lead now that we're seeing is off the back of these team fights, off the back of these 7 kills that Blugin the Woogys are finding. Now they're starting to steal away some of the more neutral objectives. They haven't been able to find that speed buff and blue buff like they were finding on cooldown last game, but they're still playing the map so well that that's where their XP lead is coming from.
Blugin had to dash to get out of there, tries to lead them towards andinster, who cannot quite find the ult, but they don't even need it. Special delivery a little bit better. It's just to get him into the fight faster, and they find the first kill, shutting down JinguBang for his 3rd death of the game. And it's the mid 3v3. You can see it in the numbers, man. They have not been able to keep up. Mortbklyn trying to contest with him, but out comes the ultimate from Crimson yet again. He gets gobbled up by the Kraken this time, and there's low HP bars on every side, but the aggressors are Blugin the Woogys looking for Sops to pin enough over the wall from Gamma, and that will shut the Poseidon down. And Diesel doesn't know. He doesn't have enough information to know where he can step. You can see those pings coming out, but andinster does a good job looping back underneath to make it out as Aqua trades with Mando over in right.
Overall, 2-for-1 trade in favor of Blugin the Woogys. Losing Crimson, though, that's a high priority target. He was 3-0 at that point, so his bounty was high. Aquarius in the air. I wonder what he's going to go for here. Looks for the dive, doesn't quite find the stun. Might just fizzle out as he goes back to farming.
That is what's going to happen. He'll just hammer out of there and retreat. But you're right, losing Crimson is pretty valuable here at this point. He's had a really good start to the game. But it's just been that I think that Crimson's been able to play a little bit better than what we've seen from Sops. Sops has been so reliant on the setup as Diesel looks for the dive and can't find it. andinster rotating over to try and punish this. Diesel has been the saving grace from Mexiety all set long. If they lose him, it could be very damaging. The pan lands as well. No way out for him. Blugin even gets the kill to his direct opposition, who's now 2-0-2, and things get even worse for Mexiety Onset. But I just don't know if Sops has been able to match Crimson's value throughout this early game myth.
It's hard, especially on Poseidon, a god that is really predicated on the fact that your kill comes from your ultimate. You try and build an early lead, and that's when you start to use the rest of your kit to get kills on your own. But right now, as you said, Sops is behind 2 levels down. The only time he can maintain relevance in these team fights is insofar as Kraken is available. It's a threat, but the second it's down, if you don't get a kill off of it, Poseidon's a free target for just about anyone on the side of Bloogy Woogys to dive onto. andinster can stick to him relatively well with the movement speed in his build. Aquarius, if he does rotate out, is going to be a Thor on a Poseidon, which is always nice. Knock-up immune on the 3 as well. It's not easy. You need to find more off the back of these Krakens. He has found some decent targets. Last fight, he did kill Crimson. That's a fantastic trade in favor of him. But you need to find more than just one if you want to start to close this gap up a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you could argue that that kill into Crimson was really the only big one, right? The other 2 were cleanup kills onto Gamma, as JinguBang is in some trouble on the right-hand side, and there's just no way he's getting out of it. There were too many members of Blugin the Woogys there, and he had no backup. The CC chain was strong. They're going to look to isolate MandoWarrior early on. Can't quite get him, so they head to the blue buff instead and try and strip that one away. It looks like it might have been defended as Mando does go to grab it, but there's still 4 members of Blugin the Woogys on this side of the map. Big stun comes out. Kraken, though, doesn't really find much, so somehow a 3-man pin comes out from Gamma. That just doesn't happen often. Also, a really good wall from Aqua to cut off the escape path. He goes right up to the sky with the ultimate. I can't believe he's considering a dive. Maybe trying to go in between the tier 1 and tier 2. He doesn't find anything there at all. But Sops comes up to try and get Gamma, but can't find that kill, so Aqua ends up getting dunked. That was a bit ill-advised, I think, diving with the Anvil of Dawn there. Gamma still trying to get away from Sops, but gets the backup over the wall. Knew Crimson was coming to find the kill. Mando should be able to shut this down, even with the pin up, though, so Gamma will eventually die.
These fights are mechanically impressive. The decision-making that puts them in the positions where they can show off the mechanics like that is a little bit iffy. Aqua went completely sicko mode, diving between the tier to end the Phoenix for some reason, and then it baited Gamma in to try and back him up a little bit, but he finds the kill anyway because Crimson, again, a nutty player, finds that both abilities over the wall. It's crazy to think about, but Blugin and the Woogys still come out ahead on that trade, I'd like to say. They find the mid laner. So. Overall, it's a 3-for-2 trade in favor of Blugin and the Woogys, but at the same time, andinster was farming on the other side of the map, whereas JinguBang was just respawning. So overall, the farm also goes in favor of Blugin. 3,000 gold, a couple thousand experience, 13 minutes into the game. No objective has been gone on quite yet. Yes, the tier 1 tower and the duo lane has fallen for Mexiety, but Gold Fury is going to be really indicative of the rest of this match.
And this is where I think Mercury can find some of that early game value. It hasn't been that he's blowing anyone up in particular, but the ultimate, the special delivery, I think he has some utility in the early game as andinster gets turned around on. I apologize, Andy, for speaking that death into existence. Sops now trying to run for his life as Gamma's on the chase, has the 9 turns blessing, but the Whirlpool's there to provide a little bit of self-peel, and Gamma can't keep up the chase, but in comes Aqua on the solo lane. Thor trying to peel for Gamma, but there's just too much damage from too many directions. JinguBang shuts him down. They can keep up the chase here in mid as Aqua has to use the beads just to get away. The tidal surge pushes him to safety, and Blugin and the Woogys had to get away and lick their wounds.
It looks like Blugin and the Woogys are getting just a little bit overly comfortable. They're taking these dives again like we saw in Game 1, where they're not really well-advised fights. Aquarius picks up Sops in the back off the back of his ultimate, but JinguBang gets the return kill. As the engagement continues on the backside, Blugin picks up Diesel, and now Crimson in a lot of trouble, one shot.
Yeah, why does Mortbklyn stick around there? He dies to an errant branching bola from Blugin, which sets up a triple kill for him. It's going to be difficult to burn down MandoWarrior from this spot for the lone Xbalanque, but Blugin and the Woogys somehow turn a fight that was on the edge of despair back into their favor because Mexiety Onset makes some curious decisions, and Blugin and the Woogys are right back in control here. But as you said, I don't think you get to 26 kills in 15 minutes without some poor decision-making on both sides, right? And Gold Fury now should belong to Blugin and the Woogys. Mando will try to steal, but Blugin and the Woogys do out-confirm.
He'll likely lose his life for the attempt. No jumps available. Yes, he throws them away. Blugin and the Woogys, for the first time, I think, in this set, decide not to chase down a kill, instead walking away with the lead that they get off the back of that objective. Blugin's been having a relatively quiet set, but that's the first time we've seen him truly get to pop off. Yes, Mexiety Onset wasn't really looking at him throughout the duration of that fight, but he landed every auto attack well, found all the damage that he needed, picks up the triple kill. You can't take that away from him.
No, you're right. He did everything that was needed from him. A couple very low HP targets were part of that triple kill, but he does end up getting all the damage that you need. I mean, I say it all the time, you can only defeat who's in front of you, right? And that's exactly what Blugin did in that situation and gets himself the triple and does start to turn the lights on a little bit for this Xbalanque, now level 17, the highest in the game. So he absolutely will have a chance to show us what he can do when he's put into that advantageous position. They both trade the beads and left over between andinster and Diesel tries to win this one out. The Aegis comes out from him and Diesel finds the first shot. Sops, though, gets a kill of his own to shut down Crimson, suddenly a 2-for-0 in favor of Mexiety, and I think Diesel is out of danger as well on the left-hand side. Blugin and the Woogys starting to give a little bit back.
Diesel trades out his beads and Aegis, however, now that Blugin is so high level, that could be a death sentence. Aquarius going up, level 16, has decent targets in this Poseidon, finds the dunk. And
lands right on top of Sops. The beads and the Aegis, though, allow him to get out of there. Now Aqua is in a bit of trouble. He is plenty tanky, though, and Sops is low on cooldowns, but JinguBang, MandoWarrior all here. The cripple means he cannot go to the hammer, and so they're able to lock him down. Somehow, though, Aqua's still alive. He will eventually die, as he should have. So Mexiety Onset really make that one a 3-for-0 overall. And this is what you were worried about, Mifflin. It felt like Blugin and the Woogys maybe got a bit too comfortable.
It seems like, again, they're just looking for any engagement they can. Blugin nearly dead, doesn't matter. andinster is going to ult through 3. He gets him out alive, but the fight continues, and it's not going the way of Blugin.
andinster disengages to make his way out of there, but Gamma wants the fight to keep going, finds a 2-man pin. Crimson is there with the strife. MandoWarrior could end up falling. Unruly magic will spell the end for him. A 2-man strife from Crimson as he continues to play out of his mind here in this set. Does put out some good damage, but they can't quite lock down JinguBang. The pin's going to be out of range, not necessarily off the mark, just out of range there. And good work from Gamma to disengage. So Blugin and the Woogys overstep, but they get a little bit back when it's Mexiety Onset who hang around in front of that tier 2 tower a bit too long there, Myth.
Both teams, the second they get an inch, they try and take a mile, and Smite's not a game where you can really do that. At any point, you can misplay, you can get outplayed by the enemy gods. We saw that that fight was completely favored towards Mexiety Onset, and then ErupTCrimson finds two-man strifes, which is just enough off the back of Unruly Magic to deal so much damage that they had to force them out, finds the kill onto the enemy god. I mean, both teams are overcommitting for the stuff after the stuff. It's not the best look in the world. Objectives are available on the map. You don't have to continue moving in towards the enemy fight. You don't have to keep moving in towards these towers. Pyromancer's currently available. Diesel getting aggressed on over the wall. Should be safe.
He does jump out, but still under duress from Blugin, who's there, getting some backup, though, from MandoWarrior. As you said, should get Diesel out of there. There was aggression in the right as well, as Aqua was forced to use his Anvil of Dawn in order to disengage. So hopefully we'll have a moment to breathe now. There's been 30 kills in 19 minutes, a ton of action in this game so far to try and break down what we've seen throughout this game. It looks like it is going to be the crit build from andinster, has the rage and the crit to follow that up. But look at JinguBang. He picks up a spectral armor to try and cut into that a bit as Sops is in trouble in mid. Another good ultimate from Crimson will spell the end for Sops as he was locked down by Gamma. So they have the 5v4 power play. They're going to look to move in and try and strip away the red buff here in Mifflin. They do that successfully. Can they keep up the fight on the back end? Crimson's in trouble. They got to keep him alive, but they can't do it. JinguBang gets the kill to make it 1-for-1 mid for mid.
I mean, it's continuing in that the second the fight ends, another one starts up. Both teams not willing to give up any ground. The fight continues.
Gamma's in some trouble, has been stunned out as well, but it's MandoWarrior who's been isolated over to the left. Aqua tries to keep up the chase, but cannot quite get to him. Fury will be spawning relatively soon. 25 seconds means you can't just sit around, though, and wait. So they'll look for the backs instead. Diesel comes through, gets stunned, but holds on to the relics smartly. So he'll have them available for this next fight.
Both teams slightly grouped around this gold free. They both have to know it's spawning. Last time Bloogy and the Woogys took it, it was off the back of a ward that was already placed by Mexiety Onset. They just couldn't quite contest it. Seems like both teams are here for the start, but both teams are starting to back. andinster's on the other side of the map farming up just a bit. It looks like Mexiety Onset's going to have the defensive positioning around the gold tree, which I am a huge fan of. It's so much easier to hold a position than it is to push into it. However, you can't take too much poke before the fight starts.
And I think there's a legitimate concern for Bloogy and the Woogys about how this composition translates into the late game. Aqua's very bruisery with this build. Gamma is a warrior, not a traditional guardian. They don't have that real, actual beefy front line to try and fall back on the way the Mexiety Onset do. I know that Bloogy and the Woogys have about a 3k gold lead here, but it might get harder and harder to stand up to Sops and Diesel the longer this game goes, as JinguBang is forced to start retreating. Blugin has already used his ultimate early on, but Mexiety Onset kind of on the full retreat here. They're able to regroup back at safety as Primal Fury started by Bloogy and the Woogys, and they've got that down to half. But whenever Kraken's around, I don't know how comfortable you can feel trying to confirm an objective. Sops is hidden on the backside, but Aqua has the ultimate, tries to get into the backline, but really doesn't find much. This is more for zoning than anything, as the rest of Bloogy and the Woogys should confirm Primal Fury nicely.
I mean, that was a sick zoning ult from Jing Chen, keeping them away. I'm being facetious. That wasn't the best ultimate I've ever seen. The fight continues after the Gold Fury. Bloogy and the Woogys continuing their aggression. I've said it, and I've said it time again. After the objective, you don't have to continue fighting. You can move in towards the other one.
Diesel is in some trouble. Sonic Boom finds multiple members. It's a good ult from andinster. Sets up for Crimson to find a really nice strike to get some damage. He ends up using the Kraken just to try and get Gamma, but a big stun comes out. That hits 4 members, so JinguBang goes back in, sees some low health bars. Crimson does get Sops, but Gamma is incredibly low. Aqua's incredibly low too. JinguBang gets the double kill. MandoWarrior doesn't have the cooldowns to get Gamma, does have the blink, but Gamma makes it back out of there. So they end up getting the Fury, but they go in for the fight, and it's a 2-for-2. Aqua and Blugin fall for Sops and Diesel.
I'm going to start a tally count now for every time Bloogy and the Woogys get an objective, chase out a fight, and then lose the fight afterward when they could have just reset and spent their gold. We're up to 3 on this game. I'm sure we'll see a couple more. I need some more discipline from the squad. They've proven that they can play at this high level. Their team fighting is very good. They're able to use their abilities well. They all have the mechanical skill of at least a low-tier SPL team, as well as They have the drafting that is going to be very decent. If you look at their draft, it's going to be good in the late game. It's just the decision-making on what to do when they have the advantage is where Blugin and the Woogys are lacking. Mexiety Onset doing a very good job of optimizing out the fact that Blugin and the Woogys are willing to W key to wherever anyone on Mexiety is standing. So, yes, they are winning these fights, but it's not off the back of their own merit at this point. It's the fact that Blugin and the Woogys are just choosing to take bad fights.
They are. They're fighting a bit undisciplined here right now. They have a couple members over near Pyromancer Fire. They're not looking to start that, though. They want to try to see if they can lock down Sops. The wall comes in and try and cut off the Sonic Boom, but Sops is just a sitting duck. Aqua lands his ultimate. Sonic Boom comes through, too, and they've taken the Poseidon out of it early. In comes the ultimate from Crimson as well. He finds the kill to Mortbklyn, but they do lose andinster on the Mercury. He fell already in this fight. It's just Mando, JinguBang, and Diesel left. They know there's some low HP bars back there from Blugin and the Woogys as Mando takes additional poke, but I don't know how much more fighting they can do. Blugin and the Woogys come out on top 2-for-1.
That's a perfect example of what happens when Blugin and the Woogys choose to take a fight that isn't inside an enemy objective. They get the 2-for-1 trade, instantly shutting down Sops in the fight. He wasn't even able to use his Kraken, so that's a huge source of damage not available from Mexiety Onset into the rest of that fight. Yes, they do trade out Andinster, but they get Pyromancer off the back of it. And for once, they decide to back up afterward and not lose another fight after the objective. So what is a huge gold swing in their favor remains so as they return to base to spend it.
Look how much damage Crimson's doing. 26,000, 10k above anybody else here in this game. That's an absurd amount that he's been able to do here so far. A really good game for this Discordia. And what I think is really becoming a problem for Mexiety at this point, Myth, is that there's just so much mobility and dive on Blugin and the Woogys. I'm worried that this comp might have a hard time if this game goes 35 minutes, but right now, Sops doesn't get to play Smite at all. They just sit on him every team fight.
I mean, that's what you need from this team, and even in the late game, Aquarius is going to be able to dunk down on a Sops. Let's hold that thought. Mortbklyn getting picked out immediately, and the Kraken dealing 0 damage to Aquarius.
Yeah, agreed. There has not been enough Poseidon value here at all this game. The hammer from Aqua allows him to stick in. This is what I mean by all that dive. I know Poseidon's fast, but there's just no way for him to get away from this composition. The hammer does allow for Aqua to reposition as Sops falls again after an underwhelming team fight. It's been a 2-for-0 clean fight for Blugin and the Woogys so far, but they do manage to throw one member back. That's Crimson that gets isolated, but Andinster took care of Diesel. Andinster gets a doubles. He takes care of MandoWarrior as well. That's a full-on deicide for Blugin and the Woogys. Who needs Fire Giant or really any big objectives when you could just win the fights like that? They'll take the tier 2 tower, and they've got time. I think they can keep right on sieging for a Phoenix. I don't know if it could be an end call here, Mifflin, but they can keep on pushing.
With Terra being the only one spawning in 2 seconds, and then afterward they have 20 seconds for Sops to spawn, they should be able to move in. They have the wave. They've got a secondary wave flooding in, and 4 members alive. They don't even have a Terra anymore. See you later, bud, and that might be game.
I think you're right here, Mifflin. I mean, Mortbklyn essentially did nothing there that time. Blugin and the Woogys, with their dominant early game oppressive compositions that they drafted here, basically in all 3 games, run over them in games number 2 and 3. Mexiety Onset never really got their footing underneath them. I think they hamstrung themselves a bit with this picks as well. That Poseidon didn't do very much at all. I don't think it was particularly impressive, especially when you compare it to the game Crimson had on the Discordia in the mid lane. What did you see, though, Miff? You're my chair 2 here. Where did things go wrong for Mexiety Onset?
Mexiety lost the early game as they have been the entirety of the time, and this time they actually drafted for it. Poseidon, the second he hits level 5, is a massive threat. That Bridge God and Robin is able to fight in. Mortbklyn on this Terra is able to take that 3v3 team fight, and they continued it towards that 5-minute mark. It was completely even, and then they started to force some fights. Mexiety Onset in the first time of the set actually engaging some of those fights, and they immediately lost off of it, turning what was a 3-3 slash line 7-3 favored towards Blugin and the Woogys. And from there, it was all in their court. They continued the aggression the entirety of the game, taking these early objectives, afterward throwing away their lives for some reason, but taking the early game objectives nonetheless, and it just continued to spiral out of control until what we saw there.
And I think we saw that the execution for Blugin and the Woogys is just a little bit better, wasn't it? I mean, that first play from Crimson, I think, kind of encapsulates what really went wrong. Here's the triple kill And we got a hype up here from Blugin. Your Rising Jaguar to kill one low HP target, Branching Bolt to kill the second. He does hit all his autos, though, to take care of JinguBang on the back side, so is able to find a nice triple kill. But I really do think that Crimson and Gamma were kind of the stars of this comeback for me in games 2 and 3 after that game 1 loss. Just execution-wise, Crimson was nearly perfect this time, and Gamma almost single-handedly wins game 2, and then again on the Erlang Shen is just oppressive. He's so much extra damage and so much extra control that Mexiety Onset couldn't deal with.
You said almost single-handedly won them game 2. I'm going to say single-handedly won them game 2. I'm not going to preface that at all. The point of engagement for Mexiety in game 2 was at the 2-minute mark, and they lost at that point, so there was nothing for them to do at that point. And as you said, Crimson had a completely lights-out performance in game 3, just playing completely out of his mind, dealing all the damage that he could, as well as surviving an absolute amazing amount of time despite the amount of pressure that the enemy team put onto him. I mean, the team has these high-caliber players. The second they iron out the decision-making around their team fights, these guys are going to be a force to be reckoned with.
I agree, man. I do think this Bloogy Woogys squad is one you got to be a bit scared of as currently constituted. And I really do think, sort of what I think you're alluding to, is that they're only going to get better as time goes on, as long as they can iron out some of these issues. But that's only set number 2. We still have more action to come here in the NA SCC. We'll be right back after a few minutes.